Ladies and gents, it's Saturday morning and it's time for an alternative paper review.
It's the alternative paper review.
First up to the Times. Plot to target Parliament. Oh, this is scary, isn't it, guys? It says pro-Palestinian activist tried to force Commons into lockdown and called for more pressure on MPs. I mean, that is the key thing here, isn't it? It's that it's a protest. They're calling on pressure. They want to see action. But really all this comes back down to is Gaza, Palestine, 30,000 dead, people wanting to see some representation from their parliamentary members, and they're not really seeing any of that. And so the protest spills out into the parliamentary estate in the same way that it would have done with the poll tax riots or the invasion of Iraq, whatever. But for some reason, with this, we seem to have bled into the realm of plots and targeting Parliament. You know, there's a quilt of national security being laid over the top of this story, isn't there? Next up to the Sun. Mel B exclusive. You hear that, guys? This is an exclusive. The Sun, once again, after some footballers' wives tell-all and Joey Essex's holiday snaps. I mean, the Sun have managed to land this scoop as well. I was so broke, I went to Lidl to save cash. Wow. That is an arresting, compelling story. The New York Times must be kicking themselves. Over to the Mirror now. Royal health battle. King and tonic. Oh, God. Every day. Every single day. The King and Camilla and William and Kate and Harry. I don't know. Like, I don't want to be really, chunty about this. But let me just say how I feel about royal news and royal gossip. I think if you care what happens in the royal family, from a lover's tiff to brothers warring, right up to cancer ravaging the king's arsehole, I think if you think that is worthy of front page coverage, I think you need to speak to your own family a bit more often. I think you have an empty, pointless life. I think psychologically you have a complete absence of self. And I think you should seriously consider, with that absence of self, what it is that you contribute to society. And maybe if you come out with the same conclusion as the rest of us, you should consider permanently withdrawing yourself from it. And then I think there would be an amusing irony, because if you did remove yourself from this mortal coil, like here's the kicker, it wouldn't even make the front page of the newspaper. Do you know why? Because the column inches would be gobbled up, because that day William went to go and visit a bowling green.
Prince Andrew's a nonce burger.
Over to the Telegraph now. Health Secretary gives backing to the decriminalisation of abortion. I got a second. What year is this? The decriminalisation of abortion. When was abortion illegal? Victoria Atkins says her record speaks for itself as MPs prepare for vote on first law changes in decades. This is what's so frustrating about British politics, isn't it? Is it like you feel like debates or arguments that have already been had have been like put to bed, like we've solved that. But the religious nuts, the right-wingers, they just never stop, do they? So now here we are in 2024, and there's still legitimately in the US and in the UK people who think that the cells used in IVF are actually babies. To which the only sane response from people like me is to say, look, if you're this rabidly upset about what might happen to a couple of eggs, just a couple of eggs that might have turned into something, I mean, A, you must find life in general very, very hard. But B, I would advise you to stay away from my shower plug hole. Finally, to the Daily Express. Grant Shapps. It's vital we don't go soft on evil Putin. Who wrote that? Who wrote that headline? It's vital we don't go soft on evil Putin. Like, what exactly is taking place here between Shapps and Putin? I mean, I don't think there's any risk of me going soft on Putin. Like, what sort of punishment is he thinking about meting out on Vlad when he gets his hands on him? And finally, to the Daily Mail. Vile cat killer who went on to murder. Okay, all right, this sounds serious, but it doesn't sound like a story that should necessarily get across the front page of the biggest selling newspaper in the UK. Like, a cat killer. Like, sure, that is disturbing. And if this person went on to murder, obviously that's an escalation. They're probably a psychopath. At the risk of sounding callous, that's the sort of story that could happen, like, up in Norfolk or, you know, Glasgow. Like a one-off murder. That's, you know, why is this on the front page of the Mail again? Oxford Don's transgender daughter. Ah, right. There it is. Oxford Don's transgender daughter picked victim at random and was then betrayed by her escort lover who called in the police. Right, okay, so basically what this is somebody escalated from killing a cat to smashing a bottle over somebody else's head, murdering them. It was all part of some sort of sadistic fantasy. The lover then dobbed them into the police, but this murderer happened to be transgender. And so that is why the Daily Mail are putting it on the front page, because obviously that must be a key component with this story. Ooh, trans people. I mean, this is what's so depressing about this, right? Is they'll do a story like this. This will feed and ferment the bubbling landscape of UK transphobia. It will embolden and empower people to treat trans people in a different way, with more anger, more violence, more hostility. And that landscape, that culture will then occasionally, unfortunately, flare up into instances of trans hate and trans murder. And then the really insulting thing is that in, like, I don't know, 12 weeks or 6 months, a young transgender teenage girl will be murdered by people emboldened by tabloid coverage like this. And you'll see the same journalists and same editors like, oh, I don't know what's wrong with all of these transphobes. And hopefully people like you and me will be right there ready to say, yeah, I don't know what's wrong with them either, guys. Maybe they were radicalized. Anyway, that's it for this one. If you're enjoying these paper reviews, do consider dropping me a little tip. You just got to hit the 3 dots and drop me a little, I don't know, £2 or £3 tip into the tip cup. It's called a super thanks on YouTube, for which I would be super grateful. And if you're enjoying the podcast and a paper review and the other sort of punk politicsy stuff that I put out, then maybe consider joining the Patreon or the YouTube community. There are links to both in the description below. I'm out.